Hold on. Just want to check. Before we start, just few house rules for everyone. Um, this session is being broadcasted in SCB Malaysia YouTube page. The given link is there. If you're using headphone or earphone, preferably to do so. And if you're joining from the SCB Malaysia YouTube, if you have any questions, please use the live chat function. Okay, share screen. I think we're ready. Just checking some technicals. All right, I think we're good. I see ourselves in YouTube ready. All right, we can start now. Um, Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session. Welcome to the World Turtle Day Open House. This 2 days live virtual event is organized by the Society for Conservation Biology Malaysia, or SCBMY, in conjunction with World Turtle Day that falls on the 23rd of May every year, and the Hari Raya celebrations on the 24th and 25th May this year. The World Turtle Day is celebrated to bring attention to and increase knowledge of turtles and tortoises and encourage human actions to help them survive and thrive. So I would also like to take the opportunity to wish everyone Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri and Happy World Turtle Day. Now, as we are all aware by now, the COVID-19 pandemic has hit us hard. As conservationists, we want to be open, transparent, and inclusive by sharing about the challenges presented by COVID-19 and how we are coping with the challenges, as well as exploring the emerging opportunities that we can leverage on in moving forward with the new normal. Now, with the focus on the resilience of turtles and turtle people, SCB Malaysia hope that this World Turtle Day open house can bring optimism to you. This virtual celebration will consist of live sharing sessions with various global, regional, and national turtle experts, deliberating on various themes, fun session with children, and a video competition that provides audiences of various backgrounds an avenue to share their perspective on turtle resilience. So briefly, on the slide that I showed you right now, for today and tomorrow's program, we have 4 sessions each. And for more information, please visit the events website in www.scbiomsia.wordpress.com. You can also visit the SCB Malaysia YouTube page where all the live sessions for this event are being broadcasted in that page. Now, welcome to the first session for today, which is the pandemic and the turtle conservation stories of resilience. We have 5 speakers for this session. First, we have Dr. Chen Pelf Nyok from the Turtle Conservation Society of Malaysia, or TCS. She is a freshwater turtle researcher and conservationist. She co-founded TCS in 2011, leads a community-based terrapin conservation project, conducts turtle camps with students, and was recently awarded the Commonwealth Points of Flight from Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II for her efforts. Secondly, we have Encik Haji Yusof bin Sharif from the Department of Wildlife and National Parks Peninsular Malaysia, or Perhilitan. He has served with the department for 20 years, previously served as the Director of Perhilitan Terengganu and Perhilitan Johor. He is involved in terrapin conservation management under the department. Thirdly, we have Associate Professor Dr. Juanita Joseph from Borneo Marine Research Institute of University Malaysia Sabah. She is a sea turtle biologist and conservationist. She is involved in sea turtle research and conservation since 1996, especially in saving sea turtles of Terengganu. She is well known for her active dedication in sea turtle research, conservation, and outreach programs. She has established genetic research of sea turtles in Southeast Asia and had published her findings in high impact journals. Currently, she is a lecturer and researcher in BMRIUMS, focusing research on genetics and health studies of sea turtles at the Malaysian Coral Triangle areas. Our fourth speaker is Inche Jeet Vendra Kirishnamurthy, or Jeet, from the Tropical Research and Conservation Center, TRAC. He is the science officer for the organization, and his research interests mainly cover coral reef restoration and sea turtle conservation. He employs non-contact, minimally invasive techniques to study sea turtle population and distribution dynamics on reefs surrounding Semporna, Sabah. He is an honorary wildlife warden in Sabah and regularly patrols Pom Island of Semporna, preventing against turtle nest poaching and illegal fishing practices. He is also a postgraduate master candidate under the BMRIEMS. Our final speaker is Inchi Arston Fredrickson from WWF Malaysia. He is currently the Marine Conservation Officer of the Semporna Priority Conservation Area of the Marine Program, specializing on the conservation of sea turtles. Now, prior joining WWF in 2019, he led the sea patrols with Reef Guardians Enforcement Team and supported the turtle hatchery management in Sugut Island Marine Conservation Area, or SIMCA, since 2017. And I will be the moderator for this session. My name is Gavin Jollis. I am from WWF Malaysia and the Borneo Marine Research Institute of UMS. I have worked for over 10 years in the field of marine conservation in Malaysia and is currently the Senior Marine Conservation Officer of the Marine Program, focusing on sea turtle conservation and impacts of climate change to coastal communities. I'm also currently a postgraduate master candidate under the BMR UMS, focusing research on genetics and health studies of sea turtles in Sabah. Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed with the speakers, I would like to give a brief background in relation to the topic for our session this morning, which is the pandemic and turtle conservation, stories of resilience. Now, as you may all know, the COVID-19 pandemic is an ongoing global pandemic of the coronavirus disease 2019, or in short called COVID-19. And it was the outbreak was first identified in Wuhan, China in December 2019, and later on was declared as pandemic on March by the World Health Organization. Such pandemics has led to numerous deaths, as you can see, as of 25th May 2020, more than 5 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 has been reported to WHO, including more than 300,000 deaths reported to WHO. Now, aside from death, the pandemic has caused global social and economic disruptions. We had a global recession, postponement of sporting, religious, political, and cultural events, and disrupting the global education system. And Malaysia is no exception. Based on the Department of Statistics, Malaysia, they report that where nearly 200 respondents participated in a special survey, effect of COVID-19 on the economy and individual in 2020, the findings reveal most are affected in financial, employment, and spending patterns. However, as reported in media, mechanisms such as the lockdown or circuit breaker or movement conservation restriction order provided positive results to the environment. As you can see from the slide here, shows that the decreased emission of pollutants and greenhouse gases due to halted industries led to cleaner air and drop of pollution. However, this is also debatable. Now, as we in the call and also our viewers joining us from the YouTube page right now, as turtle conservationists, our work are multidisciplinary with the aim to conserve turtle populations from human and non-human threats. Now, our work ranges from implementing research, advocacy, on-site protection and management, such as patrol the nesting beach at night, hatcheries, hatchling release, rehabilitation, education and awareness, providing volunteering opportunities, and etc. And all these are done by our friends, various stakeholders range from government organizations, academia, research institution, non-government organization, community-based organization, and private sectors. And as I shared earlier, the mechanisms such as lockdown, circuit breaker or movement restriction order provided positive results to the environment as reported by media. Now, over the past few months, there have been news reported on presence of rare endangered animals were observed, and beach closure led to less disturbance to turtles, and rare species have been sighted nesting in areas in the world after long years of absence. However, such restrictions also negatively impacted our turtle conservation work. Conservationists and researchers are unable or perhaps has minimal involvement in implementing the activities and raise their concerns as reported in the media. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the brief background of the session. And now I would like to direct to our panelists. So, dear panelists, with the said background that I've given about the impacts of COVID to conservation, I would like to start with the first question. I have mentioned earlier about the pandemic and how it has negatively impacted our conservation work. What are the main challenges you have faced since the start of the pandemic in implementing your work? How badly are you affected? Yeah, so firstly, I would like to invite Encik Haji Yusof to share. Please, Encik Haji Yusof.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jovin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and very good morning to everybody. First of all, I would like to thanks to the organizer for inviting Department of Wildlife and National Park to join this sharing session. Before we go far, I would like to share a little bit about conservation of Batagut Afinis or Tuntung under Wildlife Department. There are 3 conservation center. Mr. Join, maybe you please show the slide. We have 3 conservation center for Tuntung in Peninsular Malaysia. Yeah, the first Bukit Paluh at Kuala Berang, Terengganu, and second one Bukit Pinang, Kedah, and the third one Botakanan, Perak. From the slide, we can see when this conservation center was established. All 3 of them more than 30 years. And how many numbers existing now, and how many individuals were released into their habitats. We can see there are more than 60,000 individuals of Tuntung have been released to their nature habitat. Before I forgot, I like to note that these species are totally protected under Wildlife Conservation Act 2010, Act 716. As we know, this Movement Control Order or MCO the first time implement to our country. So most of people are definitely not so clear what the terms and rules, or I mean do and don'ts. This order also announced during the school holiday. So some of our staff on leave, balik kampung, cuti sekolah balik kampung. I think not only my staff lah, another department, government department or private also during cuti sekolah. This is bit concern since most of our tasks require them being at field, especially for wildlife conflict and enforcement. However, according to the department rules, for staff who working at a conservation center, we not encourage them to take leave during the school holiday, because at that time many visitors come. So we usually we not give them take leave lah, except for emergency. Basically, I can say there are no significant difference in conservation effort or challenge for this species before and during MCO. In the early stage, when MCO announced by government, we are worried about the contractor ability to supply food for our wildlife in conservation center, not only at the Tuntung Conservation Center, also another conservation center like Sladang, deer, and pigeon. But Alhamdulillah, with cooperation from all parties, the problem has been resolved. And fortunately, the laying season for this species was over when MCO was announced. So our priority work is to hatching the egg and carrying the new baby. Generally, the challenge of breed of Batago affinis or tuntung are same with other endangered species, habitat loss and illegal hunting. For habitat loss issue, I think Dr. Chen Pel more qualified to talk about it compared to me. For illegal hunting, according to the information and observation, there are no specific river tuntung hunting activity. But what happened is the species was caught in fishing nets, causing its death or taken by fishermen for sale or masuk kuali lah. For illegal activity, activity of collecting the terrapin eggs by public, especially nearby community during laying season, also a problem lah. However, according to our observation, this problem has been reduced due to the increasing of awareness. I like to thank also to Dr. Pel lah, because she working hard to give public awareness, especially at Terengganu community. Thank you, Dr. Pel. And the younger generation is no longer interested to consume the river terrapin compared with Western generation. So for the first round, I think it's only that. Thanks. Kajivin, I think that's for the first round. I respond to your question.
Sorry, guys, disconnected. Sorry. Tuan Haji Yusuf, sorry I'll kasih on balik. Hold on. My apologies, viewers. Okay, Encik Yusuf teruskan je. Boleh?
I finish already for the first round.
Okay. Dah habis waktu. Thank you, Encik Yusuf, for the sharing on that one. I have a question. You mentioned about the illegal hunting and also the habitat destruction or loss to the tuntung. During the MCO period, what's the status with the poaching in terms of to the terrapins? Is it a trend? Is it an increase or decrease the MCO? What's your take on that?
As I said before, Actually, there are no specific illegal logging, illegal poaching, hunting for tuntung. What happened is when the fisherman set up his nets, then the tuntung caught in their nets. That's all. Then for the collecting eggs during the season, laying season, is already over because the season is in December until February for the tuntung laying their eggs.
Yeah. And you also mentioned about in your center that you require food supply for your tuntungs. Yeah. How much supply are we talking about here? Like,
it depends how many individual we have. So, but from advice from our veterinarian, every individual must get about 10% from their body weight for every day. So we have the calculation. We have the calculation, and then the percent of protein and vegetable we have their calculation.
thank you, Encik Haji Yusuf. Now we move to our second panelist, Encik Arston Dixon from WWF Malaysia. So the same question as well, Arston. What are the main challenges you have faced since the start of the pandemic in implementing your work? Is there any slide that you would like to share?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So yeah, I have a slide to share. Let me just share for a while. Can you see the slides?
Yes,
Yeah.
can. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me first wish everyone a very good morning and yeah, Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri and happy World Turtle Day to everyone. And thank you for having me here alongside with this amazing lineup of panelists. So yeah, to answer Gavin's question about the challenges amidst this pandemic. So let me first start with giving me the opportunity to just share a bit about WWF Malaysia before we move on to the topics and a bit about our marine program and of course the challenges we and our partners currently facing with this pandemic COVID-19. So to start about WWF Malaysia, so the worldwide Fund for Nature, or as we call it, WWF Malaysia here, is a national conservation trust in Malaysia, and it is a part of a larger WWF network. And WWF Malaysia was established in 1972, where we run projects covering a diverse range of environmental protection and also nature conservation efforts. We are also known as Tabung Alam Malaysia. We work on various landscape through a number of ongoing programs where we cover both the terrestrial part and also the marine part. So in this marine program, in our marine program, we have three strategies that we are addressing, which is the sustainable fisheries and seafood, protection of marine ecosystem, and also marine turtle conservation. So our focus on marine turtle is to look into addressing the threats of turtle poaching or direct tech, and also the threat and consumption of turtle eggs. And so our team is currently working on various sites, such as in Terengganu, Melaka, Tun Mustafa Park in Kudat, and also in Semporna itself. So We work collaboratively with the government agencies such as the Fisheries Department, Wildlife Department, the private sectors, the resorts, and also communities doing on-site protection such as the through patrollings and also turtle hatchery management through the act relocation of the turtle. So we are also building awareness by reaching out to different stage of audiences, not just to the publics, to the school, but also to the enforcement agencies. Besides that, WWF Malaysia, we also conduct researches and are currently working on sand temperature monitoring, beach profile monitoring to to monitor the relationship between the beach temperature and also the turtle landing and also the hatching success rate. And at the national level, WWF Malaysia, we advocate to harmonize the existing state and also federal legislations pertaining to marine turtles, where, as we all know, in different states we have different law on turtle protections, and thus creating a loophole where in Sabah we we are totally protecting the turtles, while in Peninsula we have different state. We have different states that are allowing the sale of turtle eggs, and so we move on to narrower scope where I am currently based in, which is the Semporna Priority Conservation Area. So a little bit about Semporna. As we all know, Semporna is a gateway to many islands, where some of it are top destinations for tourism, such as the Tun Sekaran Marine Park, Sipadan Island Park, Mabul, Mataking, and also Pom Pom. So the incredible, I would say, the incredible marine biodiversity that lies in Semporna had contributed to the blooming tourism industry in Semporna over the years. So, which is estimated that Semporna contributed the highest tourism revenue in Sabah after Kota Kinabalu. So, besides the great marine biodiversity, Semporna also provide great marine resources, whereby most of the communities depended on fisheries to sustain their livelihood. Semporna also holds about 45% of yellowfin tuna production in Sabah. As the biggest, as for Sabah, Sabah is the biggest producer for yellowfin tuna, followed by Penang. And with this, what I want to highlight here is that with this tourism boom in Semporna, and also knowing that fisheries are also being the main source of livelihood for the communities in Semporna, our marine turtles are actually being put into a more stressful environment in order to thrive. So, knowing that there are imminent threats to turtle in Semporna, WWF Malaysia, together with government agencies, the private sectors, and also communities, come together to help protect this turtle in Semporna PCA. So what we do in Semporna, we conducted turtle nesting monitoring together with Sabah Wildlife Departments in order to have a solid long-term trend of turtle nesting, specifically in northeast islands of Semporna, which is the Pom Pom Island, Mataking Island, Boheyan Island, Padanan Island, Timba Timba Island. So this will lead to a better protection of the nesting beaches, knowing that there are solid data pertaining to the turtle nesting in these islands. And also, WWF Malaysia, we believe in the spirit of collaborative management and have been working together with the NGOs, resorts, government agencies in order to protect the turtle in Semporna. So in Semporna, we have this management body we call as a turtle management body, where everyone can sit together and to provide solutions should there be any issues on turtle arises in Semporna. And in Semporna, we are also implementing researches such as sand temperature monitoring in order to study whether the hatcheries are providing optimal temperature in order to produce a balanced sex ratio for the turtle hatchlings, and also seagrass assessment, where we assess the current status of seagrass health in Semporna, knowing that green turtle seagrass is actually a foraging ground for green turtles. And we also conducted education awareness to the island communities and also the enforcement agency. And we are also focusing on building capacity to the communities and to our stakeholders, the private sectors, by providing them training such as the honorary wildlife warden training, where we collaborate with the Sabah Wildlife Department, and also conducting best hatchery practices training to the community that is working on the turtle conservation, especially on the turtle hatchery management, and also with the resorts. So to answer Gavin's question, with the pandemic emerging nationwide, globally even, Sempurna is also being severely impacted for, as we can see, for tourism especially. We see that tourists in Sempurna are getting lesser and lesser, and it ended up we are witnessing an empty tourist jetty at Sempurna. So I would like to share a few challenges from our perspective, from the tourism industry, and also the community and our organization itself. So for the resort that is working on turtle hatchery, so we all know that tourism revenue provide funds for the resort's conservation work, mainly the patrolling and also the conservation hatcheries. So uh, amidst this COVID-19, a lot of the resorts in Semporna actually temporarily being shut down, and staff were asked to take unpaid leaves. So currently for the turtle hatchery in Semporna that is run by the resort, it is now their operation is now being halted or being in a inconsistent operations right now. So we can see that by downsizing the number of staff, it's already make it more challenging for the existing staff that is remaining in the island to manage the turtle hatchery, as the resort is currently lack in capacity. So in Semporna, we have the Women Association of Omadal Island, or as we call it, WAPO. They are one of the community-based organization that is helping with the turtle protection in Semporna, specifically on the island, Omadal Island. So due to this MCO, they are currently being restricted to, they feel that they are being restricted to do patrolling and also monitoring for their turtle conservation work. So WAPO actually fully rely on the conservation fund. So with the handicraft sales handicraft sales drop, so does the future conservation fund being impacted here. So for us, WWF, we have been since the start of the movement control order, we have been asked or advised to just work from home. But for us, especially in the field, we that mainly works on the ground, our field activities have been halted, as sea activities are prohibited during the MCO. And in an area where I work, we are unable to access few islands that is currently having currently having the turtle nesting over there. So these islands have been left unmonitored, so we don't know how many landings have been occurred in these islands. And also we are also experiencing limited communication with other stakeholders, where we are unable to contact with the island, few of the islands that is doing the turtle patrolling and also the egg location. So yeah, so far that is the challenges that we are facing now. Over to you, Gavin.
Yes. Can you remove your remote screen? Yes. Thank you, Arston, for the sharing. It's interesting that you've mentioned about the the place that you're actually working on sea turtles and all that. There's few questions from the viewer Arston that I would like to share. Um, Molly Scott asks, are there wildlife wardens on all of the islands you mentioned in the Sempurna PCA? And if not, how are the turtle nests on those islands are being protected?
Yeah. So the islands that we are working on, we not all of the islands have these honorary wildlife wardens working on these islands. So that is why in this pandemic, we we are being our fieldwork is being limited to just facilitating from home, and we cannot really monitor the remaining islands that is without the honorary wildlife warden. Such as I can share to you that in just Northeast Islands we have Pandanan Island and Bohayan Island and also Kulapan Island. That is 3 islands without the honorary wildlife warden. So with this COVID-19, we are unable to monitor the nesting, the number of nesting in this island. On the other 3 islands, which is the Pandanan, the Timba Timba Island, Pom Pom Island, and also Mata King, they have honorary wildlife wardens over there. So we are we are actually depending on the honorary wildlife warden over there to do the patrols. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Arston, for the sharing from on WWF Malaysia's work. Let's move to our next speaker, Dr. Pelf. Dr. Pelf, or formerly known as Pelf as well. Same question as well, Pelf, for TCS. What are the main challenges you have faced since the start of the pandemic when implementing your work?
Thank you, Gavin. I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. Okay, good morning and Selamat Hari Raya to all who are still celebrating. We are all celebrating at home. I'm Pelf. I'm representing Turtle Conservation Society of Malaysia. To answer your questions of how the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting our turtle conservation operations, I'm just going to briefly share with you what we do so that you understand how it impacts us. So we have a river terrapin research and conservation project in Kemaman, and we work with the river terrapins with the local villagers in Kemaman, in Kampung Pasir Gajah. And this is what our riverbank looks like. Very small compared to the ones that Perhilitan is securing. Our little campsite. So we work with local villagers and we are training them to record basic data, like how heavy the terrapins are, how big they are. And we also insert a microchip into each female so that we know who they are. This is for individual identification. Every morning, we bring the eggs back to the kampung for incubation, and in about 60 to 100 days, these hatchlings will hatch. Right? So this is what is currently happening. We have 120 hatchlings already right now from this year's eggs. And what we do is we raise them for a few months before they are released into the Kemaman River. And we usually do this with the local villagers, with the public. We invite people over, from Facebook, social media. But unfortunately, we had to cancel a scheduled release, scheduled on the 21st of March. That was 3 days into our MCO. So right now we have 700 hatchlings in, excuse me, 700 terrapins in the kampong waiting to be released. And this is just a photo to show how we release them every year. Okay, so to get to the questions that you asked, Kevin, funding issues, it has always been an issue. Funding has always been an issue for NGOs like ours, especially small NGOs. We do not have the backup from government-linked companies or corporate companies. And we rely on our CSR programs with companies. We organize turtle trips. We take guests on turtle watching programs. And because of the MCO, we are no longer able to do that. So that's tough. So we have to raise funds elsewhere. Secondly, lack of manpower. Usually we would have 3-4 interns or volunteers, walking in and out of our office door about this time. But right now we cannot accept any interns. So that is another challenge. And because we are unable to have interns or volunteers, we depend on the local villagers to take care of the hatchlings in the village, the newly emerged ones, the 2-3-year-old terrapins. So I'm happy to say that these local villagers, because they have been doing this with us for a decade, like 10 years, they are able to manage the project without me going to the kampong. So I live more than 10 kilometers from the kampong, from the project site. So I am unable to go to the project site to measure the terrapins, to check on the nest. But luckily, Pachiwaze, I showed his picture just now. Luckily, Pachiwaze is there. He changes water every day. He feeds the terrapins every day. So we are truly grateful that we started this community-based conservation project. So even during the MCO, the project can still go on. But that doesn't mean we are not affected. In terms of education, we go to schools. We enjoy going to schools and playing with kids. But right now we cannot do that. And I don't see how we are able to do that for the rest of this year. So our education activities are affected. Awareness and outreach programs, like Haji Yusuf mentioned just now, we have been doing a lot of awareness programs with the public. Sometimes we get invited to malls in KL, even Mushroom Mall, in Mid Valley, Subway Pyramid. But we won't be able to do that for the rest of this year. So then now we rely on social media to spread our message. Final 2 slides. This is to show Pachiwaze. He was checking on the nest undergoing incubation in the kampong, in the hatchery. Previously, TCS interns would be assisting him, but unfortunately now he had to do this himself. And this picture shows the hatchery. We have, it doesn't look like it, but we have 700 terrapins in here. And Pachiwaze, who is about almost 60 years old, he does this himself. So we're not that critical about how much he gets done, because he's also not young anymore. But we did encourage him to work slowly, so that he doesn't become unwell or strain his back. But yeah, if we have interns helping us, then this work would be not as back-breaking as what you see in the picture. So yeah, this sums up the challenges that we are facing in terms of during this pandemic. Back to you, Gavin.
Yeah, thanks, Val, for sharing the challenges and some of the great pictures that you've shown with your work in the terrapins. Do you mind, perhaps, if you can share, because I've heard this story about you multiple times from Pachiwaze, could you actually share to us how's the journey of Pachiwaze in participating in terrapin conservation, and what is his take to this pandemic, this COVID-19, to the on-the-ground work that he's involved directly?
Right. When we initiated this project in 2011, Pachiwaze was one of those people who said yes to helping us. So he was one of the earlier original group of terrapin guardians. About 10 years ago, he had many young kids. A lot of them are grown up now. And this project, because we paid him a monthly wages, this project has helped him very much in terms of in improving his quality of life, because he had many young kids, back then. And he used to be an egg collector. He used to consume terrapin eggs. Haji Yusuf, jangan pergi tangkap ah. No, just kidding. So he used to be an egg collector, but when we approached him to collaborate with us, he said yes, and he is now no longer collecting eggs for his own consumption. In fact, he is now collecting eggs for incubation, for conservation purposes. And he and his friends, all 5 of them that you saw in the photo just now, including the younger generation these days. So I started this project with 5 men, local men, working on the nesting banks, collecting terrapin eggs. We now have 10 young men in the kampung doing the same thing. So they are helping us collect these eggs, because we cannot be on so many nesting banks at the same time, right? So we depend on these local villagers, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining. And yeah, we're depending on these local villagers to collect as many eggs as possible for incubation. And I also need to mention here that we do have a special permit from Perhelatan that allows us to do this work, because we have heard just now that the river terrapins are a totally protected species, meaning you cannot keep these terrapins at home. You cannot have an egg, at least 1 or 2 eggs. No, you cannot have eggs in your house, and you cannot keep the adults or the hatchlings. You could be fined or put in jail or both. But we do have a special permit, so that allows us to work very closely with Perhelatan Terengganu. And that was how I met Haji Yusuf, like so many years ago, and he was director of Perhelatan Terengganu. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Pelf. And then I'm sure you're in communication with Pak Jiwaze throughout the MCO period. What's his view on the MCO? Does he still do the work? But I guess maybe he's unable. Maybe he would like to go out more when doing the work. But what's his view on what's his take with the MCO?
He surprised me. At the beginning of the MCO, I called him and I said, I'm so sorry, we do not have interns this year and I cannot go and help you. And he just jumped into his roles. He just told me, tak apalah, Mek, tak apa, saya boleh buat. He said, don't worry about it, I can handle it. So that was very good, because totally did not expect that from him, even though we have worked together for 10 years. That's nice, hearing from, something so reassuring from the local community. So I tell people that I don't have to die to see this happen. And I'm glad I don't have to die. And this COVID is showing me that the terrapin conservation project will still continue. It looks like it's going to sustain itself even without me being around. So that's a good thing. And right now we hope to slowly work ourselves out from that kampung and just be in a supervisory mode, so that the locals can decide the direction of the project. Because ultimately, for a conservation project to work, we need the buy-in from the local villagers. As long as they are interested in the project, as long as we can demonstrate to them that it will bring a lot of benefits to the local kampung and to themselves, then I'm pretty sure they can see the bigger picture.
Thanks, Pelf, for the sharing on that. Very interesting in working with the community-based organizations. So before we move to our next speaker, which is Dr. Jonita Joseph, I would also like to share to everyone that we are also live tweeting this live session in the Twitter, in SCB Malaysia Twitter. So for those that are unable to access the YouTube page of SCB Malaysia, feel free to tweet and then share this information to them. And also, please continue to, and also all our live sessions of this event is also podcasted in the SCB Malaysia YouTube page. So, panelists, so we have heard what Encik Haji Yusuf representing from the government, and we have heard from the NGOs, from Arslan, and also Dr. Pelf, in terms of the turtle work, both sea turtles and also fresh terrapins. Now let's go from the angle of academia. So Dr. Jonita from UMS, BMRI UMS, Same questions to the other panelists as well. How badly are you affected, or perhaps as a researcher, how badly are you affected from the COVID?
Okay, thank you, Gavin. I will share my slide first. Okay, salam sejahtera and a very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank SEB, SEB Malaysia chapter for inviting me to participate in the World Turtle Day Open House 2020. And happy World Turtle Day to all turtle lovers out there. And also, Selamat Hari Raya Idul Fitri to all Muslim friends and family. So, Gavin, before I answer your question, I would like to give a bit of background of what I'm doing as a turtle researcher. So, I am a lecturer, so meaning that I also teach in the university. And of course, during this MCO, for lecturer, work as usual, and everything is online. And in fact, our work didn't stop actually, but everything was conducted at home. I'm a sea turtle biologist, and I actually started my career in University Malaysia Terengganu back in 2002, and I became the second see-through project leader from 2008 until 2017. And in 2018, I decided to come back to Kota Kinabalu, which is my hometown. I'm very happy to be back here. And I joined the Borneo Marine Research Institute, University Malaysia Sabah. So these are the picture of what I've been doing in the field. And my research focused mainly on the nesting biology, molecular ecology, and health study of sea turtle. And to tell, let me introduce how I started this turtle research. So my first research program was in 1996. I was involved with the research in 1996, and it was actually for my final year project working with Dr. Chan Eng Heng and Mr. Liu Hock Chak at that time. So my first project, turtle project, was to determine the nesting biology of the green and hawksbill turtle in Sabah Turtle Islands Park in Sandakan. And apart from teaching in the university and conducting research, I am also involved actively in awareness program. So for so many years, I ran the Sea Turtle Volunteer Program. This is when I was with UMT, and also conducted turtle camps, and I also organized talks for school children and the public as well. Let me hide this one first. Okay, and for the last 2 decades or so, my team had been doing study on the biology, ecology, and threats to sea turtle in Malaysia. And from knowledge from this research, had been used to improve the conservation of sea turtles in Malaysia. And I am very happy to see that today, if you see, the turtle conservation in Malaysia had increased. And I'm also happy to see that more individuals, NGOs, and corporate agencies are actively involved in sea turtle conservation. Also, not forgetting the local community. So, for example, the local community in Kudat, the community took initiatives, of course, with the guidance from the government agencies like Wildlife Department. They took the initiatives to monitor and protect the nesting beaches in Kudat, as well as protecting the turtles in the water. And in 2010, the turtle research, my team had expanded from nesting ground to foraging grounds. And at that time, we don't know anything about the foraging grounds in Malaysia. So we don't know what turtle species are feeding in the Malaysian waters, what are their sizes, and what are their maturity stages. And the most important thing, we don't know which nesting stocks contributed to this foraging ground in Malaysia. So we have established the genetic research to answer all the problems at nesting ground as well as in foraging ground. So we established genetic research in nesting in rookeries as well as in foraging ground. So I give you example, one of the most studied foraging grounds in Malaysia, which is the Brunei Bay. And we did our study here since 2011 until 2019, and we found out in Brunei Bay, because of the massive seagrass bed, this foraging ground, we can found that only the green turtle, majority the green turtles feeding at this foraging ground, and we found that the sizes of turtles in this foraging ground are consist of adult and sub-adult, meaning that this is a permanent foraging ground, which is very important for the green turtles in Southeast Asia. And through our genetic research, we found that the stocks, the mixed stocks of green turtles in Brunei Bay are originated from rookeries in Southeast Asia, especially those nesting population in Sulu Sea. Sulu Sea, meaning that the three Sabah Turtle Islands and the 6 turtle islands of the Philippines. And we also found that the turtle, some of the turtle in Peninsular Malaysia, after they nest in Peninsular Malaysia, they also go to Brunei Bay to feed here, and also those green turtle in Sarawak. So this show that Brunei Bay is one of the most important foraging ground in the South China Sea. So any exploitation at this foraging ground, it will have negative impacts to all those nesting population in Sulu Sea, West Malaysia, Sarawak, or even other countries in Southeast Asia. Hence, conservation of sea turtles in Malaysia should not only focus on the nesting beaches, but also in all habitats that used by sea turtles during their life stages. And this is my current research. I hope to get a detailed genetics and health study of sea turtles at the Malaysian Coral Triangle area. And to answer your question, Gavin, so the challenges during this COVID-19 pandemic, as I told you earlier, as a lecturer, we work goes on as it is, but everything we conducted at home. But the most challenges that we are facing is all our sampling, collection of data, and also field sampling had been cancelled since the MCO started. So we are not being able to go out, and also we also have problem with those samples that we've collected previously. So at the moment, it is in a storage, in a freezer. We won't be able to analyze all these samples until the MCO, until the pandemic is over, until the university is open. And because of this delay, I think I won't be able to finish the research on time, as there is milestone that academic has to achieve in a certain period of time. And unfortunately, this might also delay the completion of postgraduate and undergraduate research. And yeah, these are the problem. However, as I told you earlier, work as usual. It's just that we're doing it all online, meeting online, discussion online. And despite all these challenges, we are not going to stop the turtle research. I do believe that things will get better soon, hopefully, and this is temporary. Okay, go back. Over to you, Gavin. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. John, for the sharing on that one. It's it's interesting that you mentioned about the field work that you are involved with your students in terms of your research. Could you actually perhaps can I ask if you can share a bit more what the type of the field work that you're doing, and what kind of a what kind of a field work that those students and you actually expected to do, and so people were able to know how extensive this field work and how MCO is really impacted to such research.
Okay, thank you, Gavin. In my research, I am doing genetics and health study of sea turtles, meaning that I have to go to the field, catch the turtles, and we have to sample a little bit of the tissue as well as the blood samples of sea turtles. So because of this MCO, I won't be able to do that. And so luckily, my two postgraduate students, which is Gavin and Nabila. So yeah, both of you had finished the sampling. However, samples still need to be analyzed in the lab. And for example, for my undergraduate students, I have 3 of them. We plan to go to Sabah Turtle Island and also Sipadan Island in April. However, all being cancelled. So what happened? We revised back the research where this student will analyze secondary data or whatever data that we have at the moment. So yeah, it is critical for researcher, not only turtle researcher. I think all researchers, they need to go to the field. If it's not for collecting samples, to collect data. And also, for example, I have deployed a temperature logger, data logger in the major hatcheries in Sabah. And I deployed them last year, and I'm supposed to download the data, but at the moment at the moment it won't be possible. So yeah, those are the kind of data that we are collecting. And also working in the foraging ground, it is very challenging. Even if you go to the foraging ground, um, it's not that straight away you will get enough samples. So because in water studies is really challenging by itself, and yeah, so we do need to go a few times to the field in order to get enough samples, enough data, and yeah, all this we are unable to do at the moment. I can't hear you, Gavin.
Sorry, muted myself. Yeah, thank you very much for Dr. John for sharing from the angle perspective academia. It's interesting to hear that from different angles they have their own respective challenges, and some of us also have the common challenges as well. And I hope researchers that's if you're joining in the SAB Malaysia page, I hope that's something that we all can relate as researchers and also conservationists, and perhaps also to look into how we can collaborate more in terms of turtle research and also conservation. Moving forward, we have our last speaker. We have Mr. Jeet Vendra, or commonly known as Jeet from Trek. So Jeet, as the the final speaker to share your thoughts on this. So what's the main challenges do you have faced in terms of your work? I know what's interesting about Trek is that you provide extensive volunteering opportunities for people around the globe to learn about marine science A level. So the floor is yours, Jeet.
Okay, first of all, guys, I hope you can see me clearly and hear me clearly now. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So first I would have to say thank you, SCB Malaysia. Thank you, the organizers, Gavin, for inviting us at Trek to participate in this panel. as a panelist, and it's great to see that, you know, as Dr. Juanita said, lots of people coming together, terrapins, tortoise, turtles. We have a whole strong group now, united in Malaysia. Again, good morning, Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri, and also Happy Sea Turtle Day. I think I speak for as whole of humanity that the challenge in COVID is the uncertainty of what the future will bring. Every single day is a different challenge. When it comes to conservation as well, sometimes you need to be certain what the future holds for you to plan ahead. But then if you don't have that certainty, it will definitely be challenging. So I would like to share my slides first so that you can see in an illustrative way. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, so Tropical Research and Conservation Center is the organization, the NGO that I'm from, representing today. And a slight intro of this organization: it was founded by the late Professor Steve Oakley back in 2011 on Pom Pom Island. So back at that time, it was a very basic campsite conservation initiative where the late professor wanted to do an affirmative conservation action. And from there, we have developed and progressed through, mainly I have to attribute to the volunteer support system we have that has built track to what it was, what it is today. So right now we have a research boat, is a dive boat, a dive center, and also we do a lot of diving at the organization. So what's unique about TRAC, and also I think many other NGOs out there can relate to, is that we are fully funded and supported by our volunteer support system. So we are dependent on that, and we are independent of, for example, a resort, government support, or a grant. So we are independent of that, and we are fully dependent on volunteer support. So that being said, you mentioned earlier that, you know, tourism is down. Aston mentioned that tourism is down and restriction of movement. So I think it's quite clear that without this volunteer support system, that would be another challenge that we would have mainly. So I would like to describe to the viewers out there where we are located based on a map. So here's Sabah, the map of Sabah. And we are located right at the mouth of Sabah in the smaller red box. That's where we are from, Semporna, and in an island called Pom Pom Island. What a nice name for this island, yeah? Okay, so what's unique about islands in Semporna and also Pom Pom Island is that if you really love turtles, this is a place for you, because I can say, I guarantee you, a turtle at every single dive you do at the island. Averagely, you probably see between 5 to 7 turtles on your dive, and you can take really good photos if you like diving turtles. For all of you turtle lovers out there, it's definitely a place to visit. So I would like to share with you some island turtle facts on Pom Pom Island. So how much is how much? So the island is really small. I would say relatively, it takes you 40 minutes to walk around the island, and with a circumference of the land about 2.3 kilometers, so 40 minutes walk to patrol. And it's 30 kilometers offshore Semporna Sabah. That means we do go to mainland to get our supplies. And right now I'm in Semporna for hopefully a stable life. So for me personally, I have been on the island before the movement control order and before COVID hit Malaysia. So I was here since February and been isolating myself well on the island. Pom Pom Island is also unique as in other areas in Semporna, where it's a nesting and foraging ground for green and hawksbill turtles mainly. To give you an estimate how many turtles come and nest on the island, that's about averagely 60 green turtles and 8 hawksbill nests per year. So this is just an average number, and this is something you can try to understand from. At the organization, we are conducting research in terms of understanding the sea turtle population. So we are using turtle facial ID, which is a method to study population, whereby this method is also used in other turtle NGOs out there in Malaysia and elsewhere, where turtle facial ID is using the turtle facial patterns, which are distinguishable and significant from one individual to the other, and using these patterns, putting it into a database and sorting out. So you, and then have how many number of individuals are present in a particular area, basically a population study tool. In 2019, we did approximately 30 dives around Pom Pom, and we have recorded 228 green turtles on Pom Pom Island and 5 hawksbill individual turtles. Now, these turtles, some of them are repeatedly sighted and some of them only sighted once. It goes to show that these turtles are using Pom Pom Island as a foraging ground where they will be repeatedly sighted, and nesting ground where they will nest and then migrate to their foraging ground. So basically this small island hosts 230 turtles. And what's interesting is that the functionally extinct leatherback was recorded in water nearby Pom Pom Island in July 2019, last year. So I didn't see it personally, but there's a video recording of it. So just these facts goes to show that how unique this island can be. Now, there will be trouble in paradise. So although there's a lot of beautiful things I'm mentioning about the island, but let me bring to you the environmental concerns, basically the justification for us TRAC to be working on turtle conservation and preservation at the island. Number one is that since 2018, which is about 2.5 years ago, we've recorded 39 turtle carcasses, okay? Turtle carcass that washed up and beaches itself on the island. So 39, if I'm good with my maths, that is averagely like 13 carcasses per year. And if you want to break it down, averagely per month, you're expecting 1 turtle carcass every month. Some places this is quite rare to have turtle carcasses like a dolphin carcass. But on Pom Pom Island, I wouldn't be surprised if there would be death records coming tomorrow, next week, next month. It's almost kind of expected with turtle carcass every month. So that's one of the issues. And obviously, it's because we have large population and we see a larger amount of detrimental impacts on this turtle population. The causes of death ranges from blast fishing, ranges from entanglement, plant trauma, and a lot of unknown causes of death. And most of what we recorded were deaths in juveniles and some few in adults. And that's just a concern about that. And number 2 is a turtle nest poaching. So yesterday I was on a patrol. Tomorrow I'll be on a patrol, and I'll be always patrolling the island to prevent poaching activities and to relocate the eggs into a hatchery that we manage at TRAC. And we are working together with the Musa Putih Resort. So we are having collaboration there between an NGO and a resort in managing a turtle hatchery. So we patrol, relocate the eggs. We have constant battles to deal with poachers. And I'll let you know that Pom Pom Island does not have a local community. No, there's no local village at the island, just to give you a perspective. And the community on the island is just the working community. And also maybe sometimes other fishermen may come in on the island, stay for a while and then leave. But then it's mainly inhabiting the island. It's just a working community at the island. Destructive fishing, cyanide fishing. I've always thought that cyanide fishing is something that I'll see in a reef check presentation and an example, but I never thought that cyanide fishing will come to our doorstep. So this goes to show how fragile our environmental initiative can be and how fragile the environment can be. We have been trying to work on this island to rehabilitate, restore the reef about a decade ago. So TRAC not only works with turtles, but it's also working on coral reef restoration, which turtles fall under that as well. So just about 2 weeks ago, we've reported cyanide fishing, and that came in a shock when obviously it's almost like when the MCO has came in action. It's like the parents are out from the house and the kids starts playing with fire. So sometimes I feel the culprits have feel sense of freedom, that there's nobody around, there's no eyes in the tourism watching what's going on, so they do all kinds of destructive method, just some of them. So I've reported this to the Marine Police, and they responded affirmatively and positively. Environmental concern that's ongoing ever since is erosion on a nesting beach. So I would say, in my layman terms, a nesting beach is the site of the island where it has least light pollution and has no development on the island. So it attracts a lot of turtles just because it was suitable. But now with the sand erosion, that's constantly, it's destroying its nesting beaches, and now these turtles are resorting to areas of the resorts to nest. And that's something we're constantly monitoring and also bringing it up with the WWF and also the turtle management body in Sempurna. And I would say blast fishing, if you have experience in diving in Sempurna, maybe some parts in KK, you would surely hear a blast fish in your dive trip. It doesn't happen on Pom Pom Island, but it can be heard from Pom Pom Island, where possibly the blast fishermen fish and blast other reefs that are not touristic. So we hear those blasts, and obviously turtles are in about the area. If a fish would die, if the corals would be destroyed, the turtles will also be damaged with the blast fishing activity. So we've been reporting this blast fishing activity as well. So it's these are the justifications again why it's important for an environmental NGO to be on the island, because again, if we're not there, things will go unrecorded and there will be a lot of issues impacting our turtles. This was just 10 hours ago. Yes, yesterday night, slept quite late. Patrolled the island, discovered that a turtle nest was poached. You can see those circle in red is a broken egg with the yolk staying out. So this is again what I'm saying. We are battling turtle poaching 10 hours ago, just recently. You know, it can be very, very demotivating to find that turtle nest being poached, all because you weren't there at the right time to prevent that. So it's how vulnerable. If there's no eyes on the island, I guess most of the nest would be poached whenever there's an opportunity. So we are really keeping an eye out on this, and we have been communicating with the Wildlife Department, WWF, for assistance and support as well. Now, in relation to that track, again, I've told you that we work with reef restoration projects as well, and as well we view that turtle conservation, preservation, and research is so these are our projects, turtle patrol and hatchery management. We are looking into monitoring the sand temperature of the hatchery. And I think if NGOs out there do work with hatcheries, I think it's very important to have a temperature logger just to know that we are on the right track and not causing a gender disproportion or sex disproportion in turtles. We don't want too many females and too little males, resulting to a population that cannot perpetuate. So we are looking into monitoring the nests that we manage. Again, turtle facial ID, we do previously dives around the island and in other islands in the region to record the population and take photos of the turtle. So we train our volunteers to be more than citizen scientists. We train them in a systematic methodological way to conduct this survey. So that's turtle facial ID. And with turtle facial ID, we are measuring the sizes of the turtles using a non-contact method of laser photogrammetry. So quite familiar that they do this in Lama Bay as well to measure their whale sharks, their turtles. But now we are implementing this laser photogrammetry in Sabah, which I think, to my knowledge, it will be the first. Turtle carcass, from the turtle carcass that washes up on the island, we try to collect samples sometimes under a permit of SABC we get the samples, and that's one of the studies we try to do. We try to understand where is carcass coming from. Are they again from the region or from a different area? We never know. There's a knowledge gap, and I think it's a very important study. And lastly, in terms of turtles, habitat protection, we monitor the island from destructive fishing practices like cyanide fishing, trawling nets in the island that destroys the population, get trapped in the trawling net. It will be devastating for the turtles. The preservation of the seagrass beds on the island, we constantly monitor if there's any illegal activities going on. And also we conduct regular beach cleanups, preventing marine debris from affecting turtle wanting to nest. Because if a beach is covered with a lot of marine trash, you can imagine turtles probably would not find that favorable to nest. So we try to clean up the beach. However, when COVID arrived and with the MCO, a lot of our research and conservation projects were slashed out. And right now, our coping mechanism is to prioritize our work, energy, and resource to turtle patrol and hatchery management. So we might have a knowledge gap on the population during this time. Probably we can't do beach cleanups, but then we're still patrolling and managing the hatchery at the moment. And I think that's the story of resilience for us at TRAC, how we are still trying to survive despite a lot of challenges put onto us, and also everybody out there, especially those NGOs as well. So pandemic challenges. I've told you at the initial part of the presentation that we rely a lot on the volunteer support system, and we are fully funded by that support system. And with the lack of movement, meaning that we don't have this support system in place, therefore we lack sustainable NGO funding. So without this funding, we may cease to do our operation if it's in the long run, where we require funding for both fuel, for the compressor, filling the tanks fuel, and just feeding ourselves to conduct our work to give us the energy to do what we do. And without that, at the moment, you will say that on an average day at TRAC, averagely, I'll say you'll have 20 volunteers and staff together working towards conservation and research. But right now, it's only 2 people on the field, so that's the loss of the workforce. So I think that is the challenge as well. How do we do what we do with just very few on the field itself? Like I've told you that me and my colleague has been in isolation at the island before the MCO hit, and being in isolation, we are doing what we can for the NGO. Pandemic challenge, destructive fishing practices goes unreported because initially they prevented diving activities. Without divers in the water, without tourists going around, there's very few incidences that comes reported, and it gives an illusion like as though these destructive fishing practices does not happen. To give you a clue, so for example, in April 15, in the New Straits Times, it's been published that no report of blast fishing activity during MCO. So this gives an illusion as though blast fishermen are also abiding the movement control order. However, at the island, when we read this news, it's like, no, we have recorded a lot of blast fishing. So quite a lot of blast fishing, heard like about 20 in a month. In 20 dives, we probably heard 10 blast fishing activities. And it is like, again, it does not happen on Pom Pom Island, but sound travels really fast and far in the water, and we can hear these blast fishing activities from the island. So it's probably happening in other fishing reefs as well. So we rectified that, we've informed the reporter, and obviously after a week, they came up with another article that it does happen. So it's not that we are not in the water, these things do not happen. It does happen, but it's just that lack of reporting. Therefore, it will lead to lack of enforcement, I'm afraid. Pandemic challenge, research and conservation restrictions. So if I remember correctly, the government directives were to halt research. So it's a very blanketed statement. although we are doing little research on the island, because I think research and conservation sometimes goes hand in hand. Research without conservation would be mute. Conservation without research can be blind. So we do it hand in hand. And when, for example, we were told by the district office that because we are doing research, therefore we need to be inactive. So that can be a little bit confusing sometimes, because we do, again, do conservation like beach cleanups, collect data on that, and finding that restricted is a challenge sometimes. So I think in my personal opinion that sometimes these few things can be clarified, but again, I'm really proud of what the government has been doing for COVID as well. So I'm not going to be too picky on that. Lastly, which I think is it's an overall emotion. Although I am truly happy to be doing conservation in times of COVID, but then a lot of my other colleagues cannot do that. A lot of at the field, in fact, at the field actually what I mean, and also a lot of volunteers are unable to do conservation. So as an NGO, I think environmental motivation is under pressure. We aren't able as a team to do what we do, what we love, which is conservation, and that motivation is under pressure right now. So I think that is one of the most important pandemic challenge I'd like to mention. Okay, so I'm done. I'll stop sharing my screen, and back to you, Gavin.
Thanks a lot, Jeet, for sharing from the perspective of track. There is a question here on the chat box. Eileen Yao, because I think you mentioned about turtle death that you found on the beach and turtle stranding. So she asked, when said unknown causes of death, does the unknown cases get sent for post-mortem? At least try to determine or narrow down an understanding to the causes of death. Jeet?
Okay, I really like that question. I think it's a smart question, nice one to answer. We do attempt to send turtle carcasses with unknown causes of death, especially when it's freshly dead. We do attempt to send it to the Sabah Wildlife Department. In KK, sometimes once we send a carcass to KK for them to do an autopsy. So we do try, but then most of the time, sometimes the carcass that washes on the island are badly decomposed and not fit for transfer, not fit for autopsy. And we wouldn't want to tamper with a carcass. We wouldn't want to just cut it open, because again, it should be done with the right relevant authorities, which is the Sabah Wildlife Department. So sometimes it's quite evident a blast fishing cause of that, and sometimes unknown. But again, sometimes it's quite restrictive of what we can send and what we can't send. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeet, for the response on that. So guys, you have shared some of your challenges in respect that we have listened from the government, organization, NGOs, and also from academia. So what I've sort of clustered it is, like you mentioned about funding issues, manpower issues, the inability to do the work or minimize your activities, both for research and also on-site protection. And some also mentioned about the livelihood disruption in terms of community-based organization. So I would like to shift a bit in terms of our on the topic here, but it's still related to the challenges that you mentioned. So you have shared about your challenges earlier. My question to you now is, how have you adjusted your work since the pandemic has started? How did you cope with those changes during the pandemic period? So maybe we can start with Encik Haji Yusof.
Thank Mr. Join. I think our time is so constrained, so I go quickly. As I'm told indirectly in first round session, there are two challenges that we worry when MCO announced. First, our staff on leave balik kampung and stuck at kampung. But it not happen because in our rule, staff who working at conservation center, we are not encourage them, or we not give them to take leave during the school holiday. So it's not happen lah. And then the second one, what we worry is about whether contractor can supply food as state in document contract. And for this issue, we immediately contact the contractor and give them some advice. What must they do? We guide them to issue a formal letter attached with copy of document contract, give to their workers, and go to Balai Police to get the improvement.
Yep. Thanks, Encik Haji.
At the same time,
oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
yep. Okay. At the same time, as a Plan B, our department have discussed with other agencies such as Agriculture Department, Pharma and Makis to supply vegetable, banana, fish if the contractor fail to fulfill their responsibilities. Alhamdulillah, so far our contractor have fulfilled their responsibilities, and I like to say thanks to our senior officer lah, because they have a good planning and futuristic. You see, as I said, this conservation center is established in 1980, 1970, but our senior officer have a futuristic planning. In their planning, they not only build the pond of turtle, but also the quarters for staff. So when our staff stay at the compound of conservation center, so there are no problem. They not have the problem to go to see to take care of about this tuntung.
Yes.
And I also want to take this opportunity to thanks and congratulations to all of our staff at Conservation Center for their commitment and high moral during this MSO. I think that's all.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Encik Haji Yusof. I think it's nice that the frontliners also not just consist of those in the hospitals and the clinics, but we also have the frontliners in conservation, and the senior officers that you mentioned. So they are the true heroes that actually still on the ground, still do the work, and try to still continue the. And it's good to know that the Pihilitan is also have tried to adjust to their in this during this pandemic. Arston, how about WWF Malaysia? Could you share how did you cope with the changes?
So for WWF Malaysia, we see that especially for the resort that is operating the turtle hatchery in Semporna, I can see that while the resumption of the hatchery management in several resorts can only be done after the MCO is being lifted, and of course once the tourism is operational again. But we have been communicating with Sabah Wildlife Department in order to get the authorization for all our partners in Semporna to still conduct beach patrolling during the MCO and after this MCO. And Sabah Wildlife Department has been really supportive by providing us with the official consent to continue working on this turtle conservation in our respective area. And for the community WAPO, we believe that their livelihood comes first before being able to support on turtle conservation work in Semporna. So hence we are WWF are currently providing assistance to WAPO through crowdfunding work activities to sustain their livelihood of their for the community that is working in the turtle conservation in Omadal Island. As for WWF, we are still committed to be able to return to work and continue working on our nature conservation safely amidst this pandemic. And for WWF, we have already developed SOP to guide our staff on returning to work, and as our health and safety being the first priority upon returning to work, the SOP covered almost all aspects in minimizing the risk of being exposed to COVID-19. So yeah, that's all. I think that's all for me. Over to you, Gavin.
Thank you, Arsen, for sharing on your side from WWF Malaysia. How about you, Dr. Pelf, for TCS, Dr. Pelf? How have you adjusted your work since the pandemic started? Dr. Pelf, Dr. Pelf?
So I was speaking to myself.
Yes, you were. But go ahead. Yes.
Right. Yes. One of our major challenges is lack of funding. Well, I shouldn't say lack of funding, but lack of funding opportunities. We have always had turtle trips, CSR programs with companies, but we are unable to do that now. So we have turned to raising funds from the public. So that has gone on quite well. Instead of just taking donations from the public, we are telling them where their money goes to. For example, if you make a 70 ringgit donation, you're actually helping to buy a bag of pellets for the 700 terrapins. So a lot of people positively responded to that. So I'm truly grateful. Well, lack of manpower issues. So interns cannot come to us now, but that doesn't mean they cannot help us do work, right? So we use interns all the time, and they are very helpful. We have had volunteers who are helping us with graphic designings. If you have been following us, you will notice that we have recently published a few turtle education units on our website, and they are free for downloads for especially for parents, who want to teach their kids about turtles, for parents who want to keep their kids occupied so that they can, cook a meal in the kitchen at peace. So we have that, and truly grateful for resources that enable us to engage a graphic designer to do this. Education programs are stalled because we can no longer go to the schools, but we have also been approached by a group of Boys Brigade from Kuala Lumpur. We're actually doing live classes, like lectures, with the Boys Brigade students. So we are using that as a testing ground, and if it's successful, it looks like it is not that bad, not too shabby. We will replicate these for others who are keen to learn about turtles, and we're going to have this maybe a series of short YouTube classes, videos. So we want to still continue teaching children about turtles and terrapins and tortoises, and this is one of the ways we can do that. And finally, at outreach programs, we cannot go to malls and talk to people about turtles anymore. So we are focusing on going back to the basics, things like email marketing. We have not been doing this because we always thought that, this wasn't important, let's just do it next time. What do you know? Next time is here. So we are working on email marketing. We are working on establishing a relationship with people who follow our progress on social media. We're optimizing our website so that we appear on the top page of the search results page. And this is some of the background work that we can do while we are all staying at home, working from home. So back to you, Gavin.
Thanks, Velf, for sharing on that. That's it's good to know that during the pandemic, you as the co-founder of this also has started to do some adaptive management to those changes that you are facing. So from NGOs to academia, Dr. Juanita, as a lecturer, as a researcher, and then you have also shared about your challenges. How did you cope with the changes?
Okay, thank you, Gavin. Apart from not going to the field to collect our data and samples, well, work as usual from home, and everything is done online now. And in fact, I can say during MCO, because most researchers they are at home, they can't go anywhere. We actually we have intensive discussion, not only with researchers from Malaysia, but also from other countries like Australia, US. And so in fact, we've been busy with all this online discussion and discussion on how we can improve the sea turtle research, not only in Malaysia, but in the Indo-Pacific region. And other than that, so we took this opportunity because we are at home to analyze our data. So whatever data that we have, we analyze, and but it's just that everything is done online. So honestly, as a researcher, I'm used to go out and go out to the field and then face-to-face discussion. So the first 2 weeks it was a bit weird for me, but after a while we adjust to it, and it's just that we are spending too much time on screen now. And even discussion with my postgraduate students, we do it online. And in fact, changing it from face-to-face to online discussion, I find it's actually more convenient. Like you don't have to drive, and less pollution. You just stay at home and you can communicate with your team. And work as usual for us, except for not going to the field. And I also in touch with some of these agencies, for example, like Sabah Parks. So what happened, like Sabah Parks conservation is ongoing during this MCO, but they are trapped in the island for 3 months now. So they can monitor the turtles and everything. So yeah, we do discussion online, and that's it's just that we have to adapt with the changes, from face to face to online. And of course, as a researcher, we are hoping that the pandemic will be over soon, so we can start our research again, go out to the field, and then and continue our research. Thank you, Gavin.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juan. Lastly, Jeet, being on the island and still stuck with the island that you mentioned with your colleague as well, and also leading track as a science officer. So, how did you adjust your work throughout that pandemic? Jeet, can you unmute
Yeah.
yourself? Okay.
Yeah, I just unmuted myself. So I think improvisation and innovation is what makes us human, and I think we will anyhow be able to improvise and innovate our ways to probably change our ways. Like for example, even having an online discussion like this is one of the first for me, and I think it's probably a step towards future and how we will do stuff. So how am I coping on the island? Aside from loneliness, because you don't have much people around you, you're just you with a few other people. So it can be sometimes quite lonely. But then being immersed in nature, being trapped on, I wouldn't say trapped, but being isolated at the island, it's actually a blessing to do, especially when it comes to doing conservation while being isolated at the island. And I guess the coping mechanism is having hope that this would all heal. There would be a solution to this, and And also, I feel like as though I would take the responsibility with pleasure to protect those turtle eggs, like Dr. Juanita mentioned, the Sabah Parks officers are still on the field looking after the turtles. Well, I feel it's a great responsibility to do something like that, because in terms of environmentalism, track, and also what we do is basically at the bottom. Is we do at ground zero. I think it's an honor to be part of that. And as long as I get food, I will still patrol the island, relocate turtle eggs, and release those hatchlings. And that, when it comes to turtle, that is the priority for the organization. Track. And um, I think it's also a pro during this time. Look at it on the beneficial side of it. Because of being on the field, sometimes you get really tired, exhausted physically. But with less amount of physical activities, I have more time to do laptop work, which is every researcher needs to be on his or her devices to put this data together, compile and analyze. So we have a lot of data to be analyzed and compiled. And right now, I personally am working on that. And I think being the most productive during this time can keep you busy, and you won't think too much about this pandemic. And conservation has to go on, environmental protection has to go on. Back to you, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks, Jeet, for sharing on that one. While Jeet, we with you right now, there's a question from you. Because right now, I think we have heard from all the panelists and all of your responses as well. And I see there's a lot of questions coming in our live chat box, and Dr. Jonita is actually replying to some of them. So thank you very much on that one. But since we with you, Jeet, there's a question on you about beach erosion. Yeah. Hold on, let me find it. Yeah. So Lucy Wong Zini, the question to you is there any specific catalyst to sand erosion on the beach you've mentioned under the environmental concerns? Is it a constant process? I think because you mentioned about beach erosion in your presentation.
Yeah. So come again. What's the question? Catalyst?
So Lucy asked, is there any specific catalyst to sand erosion on the beach?
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. Pom Pom Island is almost circular, right? It's like a guitar pick. It's almost circular. And with any other island, sand is almost finite on the island, and it circulates around the island. So sometimes beaches get extended, sometimes it gets shorter. It's natural. The sand is always circulating on an island. What happens when constant erosion is resulted from when this circulation, natural circulation, is disrupted? How it can be disrupted is by when there is a man-made structure in the water. So for example, if there's jetties and other forms of structure in and around the island, it traps sand and preventing circulation to happen. Therefore, when sand collects on one part of the island, it will definitely lose on one part of the other part of the island. So that's when sand builds up on the side of the other side, and sand is definitely lost on one side. So it's erosion, and the sand is being lost on the island we are on a nesting beach. So that is a worry to us. That's it.
Yeah, thanks, Jeet, for that one. So, so dear panelists, I'm actually going through the live chat, and there's a lot of your questions, but there's maybe I'll pick a question that everyone can actually respond to. So there's a question from Farhana Azmi. So she asks, it's basically an impact of COVID to our conservation. So she asks, does the absence of people positively affect the sea turtle in terms of increased nesting seen? I guess this can also be applied to terrapins as well. Anyone would like to take that question, to address that question?
Okay, Gavin, can I answer for the sea turtles?
Yeah, sure, Dr. John.
All right. Well, actually for sea turtles, they need about 20 to 50 years to get mature. So this MCO, it doesn't affect the nesting of the increase of sea turtle nesting. So if you want to see whether the turtle nesting is increased, we have to go back 20 to 50 years ago. Did we do enough conservation? Have we released enough hatchlings 20 years ago? So I am happy to share, for example, the green turtles in Sabah Turtle Islands, they've been doing, Sabah Parks had been doing a great job. They started the conservation since 1960s, and they've been releasing enough hatchlings to the sea. And in 1980s, we actually saw the population of green turtle double compared to the previous years. And this is a good indication. So the MCO doesn't increase the nesting of turtles, but maybe during this MCO, because less people going out, there are less people, less tourists, less boat in the sea, so there are less disturbance for sea turtles. And yeah, so nesting will be based on the effort, the conservation effort that had been done maybe 20 to 50 years ago. Yeah. Thank
Thanks, Dr. Juan, for the response on that. There's a question on but before I go there, is there anyone who would like to add to that from the terrapin's perspective, perhaps, Dr. Pelf or Encik Haji Yusuf?
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Dr. Pelf.
I'll take it, Kevin. Like Haji Yusuf mentioned just now, our terrapin nesting season had just ended when the COVID breakout happened in Malaysia. That was right before MCO was announced for the first time. So we are unable to tell whether more terrapins come up to lay eggs. Though their nesting season every year is, in Terengganu at least, is from February to March. In Kedah and in Perak, the terrapins emerge to nest from December to February. So there's a bit of a difference in terms of nesting season. But again, does the MCO positively affect the terrapin nesting? We do not see it yet. Yeah, and we probably won't be able to see this until many years to come, like Dr. Juan mentioned. Also, again, what happens if next year more terrapins emerge to lay eggs? Was it because the effect of COVID-19, the MCO, or is it going to be due to all these efforts of us releasing terrapins into the river in the past 10 years? So that's not that easy to quantify. Yeah, but I guess I understand Farhana's question. She wants to know whether more terrapins come up during the MCO. We are unable to quantify that at the moment. Okay, Gavin.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Pelf, for sharing that. I guess I guess at this point it's quite difficult to assess if there's a positive or negative implication to MCO to our conservation, and let's just hope maybe in the future we'll be able to witness that the changes, if it's negative or positive. There's some of the key things that been discussed in the live chat. It relates to turtle. Illegal turtle egg trade in Sabah. So Arston, this is a question perhaps to WWF. Dr. Wong asked about what's WWF take on the illegal egg trade that's happening in Sabah, especially Sandakan being the hotspot. Any thoughts on that?
Well, thank you for the questions. About the illegal selling of turtle eggs in Sandakan. So yeah, WWF, we are aware that the illegal selling of turtle eggs occurring in Sandakan. But as mentioned in my slides, one of our strategies is we try to address the threats of trade and also consumptions of turtle eggs. So with that mentioned, WWF Malaysia, we do work closely with Sabah Wildlife Departments in tackling the illegal in this issue, the illegal selling of turtle eggs. But honestly saying that, but with just the efforts from the government and also the NGOs alone, I think it wouldn't be suffice enough to stop the illegal selling of turtle eggs, where we can see that there is still a supply and demand happening from the public. So unless we receive support to cut the demand of turtle eggs for consumption from the public, I think it is possible to cut the demand. Hence the irrelevance of continuing selling the turtle eggs in the future. And I would also like to highlight that Sabah Wildlife Department, we last year Sabah Wildlife Department have organized a World Turtle Day in Sandakan alone, where this event held for 3 days, which includes awareness talks, games, exhibitions, and also short movies about turtle conservation in Sabah. And we also invited Sabah Wildlife Department also invited schools uh, to share about their to share their support on the turtle conservations. So so I think just the government and NGOs alone is not enough. We need the public support to to stop this illegal selling of turtle eggs in Sabah, especially in Sandakan. So yeah, thank you, Gavin.
Thanks, Arsen, for sharing on that one. So, my friends, we are actually nearing the end of our session. And personally, I think this has been quite an enlightening session to me, because learning from each of the different agencies, different responsibilities, different roles. Interesting to know that the challenges that they're facing are common, and we are also adapting to that challenges. So to close and wrap up, panelists, I would like you to summarize your sharing today, and as well as to share your thoughts on this question. So try to briefly answer this one. So the COVID-10 pandemic is still ongoing, and adapting to the new normal has been discussed a lot. So based on your opinion, how could we move forward or adapt with our conservation work in the future? So just a brief answer on that one. Encik Haji Yusof, perhaps, please.
Thanks. Short. In my opinion, there are two main mechanisms for conserve our fauna and flora, including turtle or tuntum. The first one is enforcement, and the second one is public awareness. So by that, I urge to our nation to love and appreciate our fauna and flora. Thank you.
Thanks, Encik Haji Yusof. Arsen, how about you? Could you summarize your thoughts and that you shared today, and how could we move forward to adapt with our conservation work in the future, based on your opinion?
So personally saying that, I think in my opinion, to protect one species, especially turtles, it requires a long-term effort, and also the support from the public itself is very important. So I believe I believe after this COVID-19, I think we should be focusing more on the public, and to be able to understand why there is this still supply and demand of these turtle eggs. So yeah, I think that's it from me.
Thanks, Arsen. How about you, Dr. Pel?
Right. I think that a community-based conservation project is the way to go, because like Arsen mentioned, conservation is a long-term commitment. And the only way to ensure sustainability of any conservation project is to have the local people doing it, not being pushed by an NGO or a company or a project. So it is important for us to initiate more conservation, community-based conservation, work with the local communities, people who live there, to help take care of our natural resources. And research is important. I'm a scientist myself. Research is important. It is very important for us to understand how the ecosystem works, how this wildlife or plant species that we're working with work. But I believe that research can be done whenever circumstances allow it. And well, there are also different types of research. We have desktop research. We have, like Dr. John mentioned just now, you can also analyze and publish papers based on secondary data. So those things can still happen, can still take place. But let's focus more on conservation and legislation, well, not legislation, enforcement, so that species continue to be taken care of under any circumstances.
Thanks, Pelf, Dr. Pelf, on that. How about you, Dr. Jonita, from a lecturer perspective? How do we move forward?
Okay. Thank you, Gavin. To all researchers and conservationists, I think during this pandemic, we have to be positive and face each challenges patiently. And we also have to adapt with the changes and try to do better. So research and conservation is not easy, but yeah, we have to be positive. And I know in Malaysia, we don't have uniform legislation, but I urge all the Malaysian public, whether you are a turtle lovers or not a turtle lover, but please support the turtle conservation. We can do it together, even without legislation. And I think eating turtle eggs, it shouldn't be done during this modern world. But yeah, sadly, like in Peninsula Malaysia and Terengganu, they are working with the legislation, but we are not sure how long the legislation will be there. But but public can help us by supporting conservation and by not eating turtle eggs. Thank you. That's all from me, Gavin.
Thanks, Dr. Juan, for your response. And Jeet, you have the great opportunity to close the session on this one. So yeah, could you share your thoughts? What do you think? How could we move forward in adapting to the new normal with our respective work? I know there's a lot of we have touched on virtuals and then leveraging on community-based organization. How about track from your in your opinion?
Okay, in my opinion, as for track, I think we are already adapting to the new normal right now by having this session and stuff. One is to collaborate with each other, through conservationists on the field, researchers, academicians, legislators, collaboration. And it's already happening, as you can see, we all the panelists, and I really like those responses from my fellow panelists of the conclusion. And I think one word to sum it all is to have environmental awareness. It's really important because in the end of the day, we also want to work ourselves out from the project, as previously mentioned by Dr. Pelf in the talk. We want to work ourselves out of the project, and if we can instill awareness through education, and this is a platform, if this we make our voice louder and more people are aware about the environmentalism, I think that's how we can move forward in conservation work in the near future. Let's focus on education, and education sometimes it also can be in a virtual world, but sometimes our places is quite hard. But yeah, environmental awareness.
Thanks, Jeet, for sharing on that one. So I guess, guys, few things that crop into my mind in terms of commonalities between all of us. Yeah, we share common challenges. We mentioned about funding, manpower, inability to do work research and all that, and also as I mentioned about lively disrupted. And it's good to know that we, since the start of it and all the way to now, we have already started to adjust to that changes. And then I guess in the future, it's not really that bleak. So we should continue to persevere in that sense. So, ladies and gentlemen, I guess the panelists have touched all the challenges faced before and after the COVID-19 and the way of coping with the pandemic, as well as their opinions on what's their future plans on that one. So through this session, I hope that you can relate with the panelists sharing that what we would be able to persevere and we're in this together to face the current challenge as well as adapting to the new normal. So like turtles are resilient creatures that have existed since the age of the dinosaurs, a fact that our species should draw inspiration from. So turtles have adapted and will continue to do so, and we as conservationists, I think, could learn from that, and hopefully we could adapt and build our resilience overcoming these challenges in the new normal. So before we end, dear panelists, there seem to be a lot of questions coming in, which is great in the live chat. And I apologize, viewers, that we are unable to entertain all the questions. And I would also like to say thank you to my co-moderator, Dr. Jonita, for answering some of the majority of the technical questions. So maybe can I ask the panelists to share your email in the live chat so the viewers can reach out to you personally with their questions. Yeah, so because maybe there are some questions that is directed to the panelists, and then you can just put your panelists, you can just put your email in the live chat box so the viewers can actually see. Yeah, yeah, just put it there, your email on the live chat. So I hope you enjoyed the fruitful session, and I would like to end once again by wishing everyone happy World Turtle Day, and Selamat Hari Raya Aidilfitri to the for the great for the past few days on the Hari Raya celebration, and also taking this opportunity to celebrate to the upcoming festivals in the near coming days. To our Sarawakian conservationists, Selamat Hari Gawai, and to our Sabahan conservationists, selamat menyambut Pesta Hari Keamatan, Kotobian Tado Tagazodo Keamatan. Yeah, so yes, so thank you very much. Panelists, please continue to be in this platform, and please leave your emails on the live chat. So we have, Belf has put their email, Dr. Juan, Dan, Arston, Jeet, could you put your emails as well so so they could actually reach out to you. Thank you, Jeet. And Arson, email. And please, panelists, please continue to be in the platform, yeah? All right, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll end the broadcast.